Nightingale. Welcome to the Piper podcast, How I Grew My Brand, where we talk to successful founders and CEOs about how they made it, the challenges, the triumphs, the ups, the downs, and the key moments along the way when their business had to adapt to reach the status of brand legend. Piper reckons those inflection points can be simplified to 7-17-70, whether that's in millions in turnover or numbers of staff, perhaps even sites. 7-17-70 indicates the points where a pivot has to happen to enable a brand to thrive. Today's guest is Matt Gowar, founder and, until recently, CEO of Equip Outdoor Technologies, owner of leading brands including RAB, one of the great British success stories in the world of mountain sports, synonymous with best quality, high-performance clothing and equipment. RAB is a true brand legend. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
OK, first things first, you're not RAB. That is someone else, isn't it? Can you explain that?
Yes, a potted history. In the early 80s, Rab Carrington, he was actually born Robert Carrington. He was Scottish and so very quickly shortened to Rab. He founded the business and he was a very keen and successful mountaineer. And Rab set up the business initially manufacturing sleeping bags from his kitchen table. And primarily it was designed to fund his climbing expeditions. And over the years, suddenly the brand grew to actually take over most of his life.
He was a proper mountaineer, wasn't he?
Yes,
very much respected.
Very much respected in the 70s and early 80s.
And about you were CEO, weren't you, until recently?
Yes.
So now what is your role? What are you doing? What do we call you now?
Unfortunately, the label of founder still, I don't know whether that's a label or a millstone around your neck, but still founder, and I'm a non-exec on the holding company.
OK, so why the change then?
You talk about inflection points, maybe we'll come on to that a bit later, but very different skill sets from growing a business. And when I left as CEO, the business was turning over 110 million. Very different skill set from then to take that on to the next journey. And I'd been also done the job in various guises as the business changed for 30 years. And I felt that I wanted a change. And family pressures as well. So I was all consuming as CEO, a lot of travel, being away, and part of that, wanted to spend a bit more time with the family as well.
Wanted to have more time to actually do nice outdoor pursuits and do the things that you were interested in that brought you into this in the first place.
Exactly. And suddenly, the idea that you can be this sort of avid interest in whatever the business is. So in my case, sort of outdoor pursuits and this idea that you'd have loads of time to go and do this very quickly disappeared. So, Was there a moment of clarity that made you decide that, or was it a cumulative thing? A cumulative. And it was, there was always a kind of, when you reach 50 type thing anyway, and it was roughly about then. It wasn't a sort of sit up in bed one morning, I'm going to do it. It was a period of time. Okay.
We might come back to that. But first, let's get a little bit more about you. I want to hear about your background and your upbringing and your education and so on. And as I understand it, your first job was stacking supermarket shelves. But were you always, do you think, in your heart of hearts, an entrepreneur?
I don't think it wasn't sort of, what do you want to do at school? I want to be an entrepreneur. I think I fell into it more than that's what I want to do. And I think having that sort of slightly non-conformist outlook on life, and only in reflection did I realise that most of the family ran their own businesses. So I think it was in a culture of not necessarily working for other people, but it wasn't. I didn't feel that it wasn't sort of an expectation. It was a sort of cultural upbringing of doing your own thing, and I think that gave me the confidence and realised that it is normal to go and do it. And I left school, didn't go to university, and just sort of did my own thing from then.
The doing your own thing entailed setting up your own agency, didn't it?
Yes. So initially...
In 91. I mean, how do you just from nowhere set up your own agency?
Well, there was another person who, a guy called Dave Brown, who offered me this sales agency job. So after stacking shelves in Sainsbury's, I then worked in an outdoor and bike shop, and then I was basically running a concession of outdoor sort of hiking equipment within this bike shop. So already doing my own thing. And then I was offered a sales agency by Dave Brown to go and sell his products on behalf of him.
And who's Dave Brown, for anyone who doesn't know?
He was very influential on me, and he ran an import business in the 80s and early 90s, and he was importing various products and making his own footwear, and he offered me the job to go and sell it.
Well, see, he saw something in you, did he?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I think he did. I mean, sometimes when I was at a trade show in Harrogate, and something just made me say to him, "Are you looking for a sales agent?" And at that point, we were buying some of his products, but he didn't have any sales team. And as soon as I asked and he said yes, oh my God, now I've got to do it. So it was just one of those, it wasn't, I'm going to go and ask him. It was just in a conversation. So it was an accident really, rather than that's what I'm going to do.
Sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
So just so I got it clear in my own mind. So you were an employee in this outdoor. You were never an employee?
No. So I worked as a self-employed agent. So I went from a sort of concession running this outdoor shop within a bike shop into being a sales agent. After leaving Sainsbury's, I've always been the boss, as it were.
I think that indicates a certain amount of kind of a certain gutsiness, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I've got friends who have been in a really good job, left that and done their own thing. That, I think, actually takes more guts. When you're 18 or 19, you don't have family, you don't have responsibilities. So
you don't have fear, crucially, either at that age.
Yeah, and so you just go and do it. At that age, if it doesn't work, technically you can go and get a job. So the safety net is always there because you can go back to doing a normal job.
But it worked out.
Yes,
pretty well for you, didn't it?
Yes. So started selling his products, and then the outdoor shops that I went to see said, "Oh, that's great, but what we need is hats and gloves and accessories." And so I knew someone who knew a factory in China. Went out to China, got the gloves and accessories made, imported them, and that was a massive learning curve. I can remember hiring a van, driving to Heathrow Airport to pick up the goods from the cargo terminal, packing them, and I lived at home at that point in the basement of my mother's house, and sending them off. And they went well. We sold really well. We had a couple of cold winters, which always is advantageous when you're selling winter hats and gloves. And the business just grew from that.
That became Equip.
Yes. And we actually initially branded all the products under Equip, then developed a better, stronger brand name under Outdoor Designs. So the first gloves we imported were in September 93, and that was the real birth of the business.
Okay. Did you at that point understand the concept of brand? Was it something that you were aware that you needed to build?
Yes, I think initially we branded all the products under Equip, and then very quickly that was a difficult brand to articulate. So then we rebranded, so I guess we did at that point under Outdoor Designs, but realised even then that it was going to be a long, hard process to develop and build the brand. So when the opportunity of buying Rab came along in 2003, and that was a brand that had already been going for nearly 20 years, it was an instant yes. Actually, my first sleeping bag when I was in my teens climbing was a Rab sleeping bag. So it was a strong brand and identified very quickly as an opportunity to bypass 20 years of hard brand building in writing a cheque.
I know that you've described the brand equity in the past that Rab had. Explain what you mean by brand equity.
So brand equity, like any kind of resource, you can either pay into the piggy bank or you can take your coins out. And, what I identify with Rab is Rab had been putting his coins in fastidiously for 20 years, paying into the piggy bank. So he'd built up this solid equity, hadn't destroyed the brand, hadn't done anything off-brand. It was absolutely true to the core. So what we bought was this piggy bank full of coins. Now, the benefit of piggy bank is sometimes, and we all teach our kids this if they ever have piggy banks anymore, you can pay in and you can take out. So there are times when maybe if you're going into a new product area with the brand, it's not actually taking money out, but you are taking that brand equity and investing it in, suddenly if you do, I don't know, a different area. So we've done under RAB, we went into the sort of ski mountaineering clothing. Well, we took out of that piggy bank, we took some coins out, we invested them wisely in this new product area. That then gave you some coins back, and as long as you put them back in the piggy bank, you're keeping this brand equity, and so it gives you that permission or that ability to go in different areas.
But I guess the key to maintaining the brand equity is, yes, you can take some coins out and you can decide that you want to go in a different direction. It better be the right direction,
yes,
because otherwise you're squandering that precious sort of equity that you had.
Yes, and as long as you then put them back in,
yeah,
and make sure you're regularly topping that up, you have that elasticity sometimes with the brand to go and do things. But yes, the day you wake up and you rattle that piggy bank and there's no coins left, then you've got a problem.
Yeah. You sort of blithely say, yes, we bought RAB. Yes. How did you do that then? It can't have been that easy. Well, or maybe it was. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, again, it's one of those moments when I heard that Rab Carrington was looking to sell his business and retire, and instantly I knew instantly that was an opportunity to pursue. And I was very lucky. This was early 2000s. Finance and cash was relatively easy to secure. We were in a boom economic cycle, banks lending money, and we took out quite a scary bank debt to buy the business. I gather he had been approached by other people to buy the business, but he felt that that we would, not destroy the brand. And for him, his name was and still is on product, and I think making sure that his brand equity wasn't destroyed, his piggy bank that he was handing us wasn't going to be emptied very quickly.
So you were, in a sense, a custodian.
Yes, a custodian of the brand. Timing. It was very fortuitous that we could raise the money and do it.
And how big was RAB at that point?
Well, interestingly, the revenue of it was actually smaller than Equip at that point. His key differential at that point was it had a manufacturing base in Sheffield. So we took on a factory with 40 employees, and our business was 12 people at that point. We completely changed the business overnight, and it was one of these inflection points that you talk about, that was probably the biggest single change in one day we didn't own RAB, one day we did, and that was a massive step change.
And you sold Outdoor Designs to concentrate on RAB, is that correct?
Yeah, we saw, you always do these business plans, and I think somewhere I've still got it. We had the Outdoor Designs business, we had the RAB business, and you draw on these great graphs of where it's going to go. And interestingly, RAB overperformed, but Outdoor Designs didn't. So very quickly, we sold the brand name to concentrate on RAB at that point.
All right. And then from there, you opened in the US, Canada and Norway. So what happened next?
Well, interestingly, Norway, we had opened already. And I think having started my career as a sales agent, really understood the fact that with a brand and a business, when we talk about that piggy bank, handing that piggy bank in a country to someone else is quite high risk. So, people do call me a control freak sometimes.
Do they?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that, Matt?
Probably not really. But really wanted to sort of control the brand and the destiny in the market. So we set up these subsidiaries, and we were a tiny business to open up offices in various places. And even today, we have a business that's, on paper is arguably over complex with offices in nearly 10 different countries. But what it means is that, we are building a solid base in those markets. And we opened Norway and Canada. I actually moved my family out to the States for 2.5 years to run and set up the US office. And those offices, all of them are still there today, and do a great job and represent the brand. And we have a direct contact to the market in those countries. So
talk numbers to me then. RAB was how big? What was turnover when you took it over, and where are we now?
1.5 million revenue.
Uh-huh. And now?
Nearly 120.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have definitely been doing something right, haven't you?
Yes, it's gone in the graph's gone the right way. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit more about the 7-17-70 theory that Piper have? Can you look back at the journey of RAB since you took it on?
Yeah.
And relate to that in any way? What were the inflection points?
Well, I'm going to slightly change the maths there. It was probably 460, 120.
Okay.
Which is
That's
nearly
all right.
there. Yeah. Slightly bigger. We always like numbers a little bit. Well, one starts off smaller and the others are bigger. So yes, I'll slightly distort that. So I think the first inflection point, as we said, was buying RAB, and we put the business together and collectively turned over 4 million. And at that point, that was a real sea change.
And that was in the first year, was it? Or
Yes, yeah. When we put the two businesses, so the core original Equip business and RAB together, collectively turned over £4 million. And this was in 2003.
Okay, and then?
Then we grew the business over the subsequent years. And then I think when we hit in early 2000, the 60 million revenue, and that was just coming up to COVID time. So, and again, the industry, like many sort of outdoor activity businesses and industries, grew very quickly around COVID. And it's now documented the whole COVID boom. Did businesses during that period either grow or shrink, and the outdoor sports grew, and so very quickly the business grew from 60 to 90 to 120 million, and those were in 2 years we doubled the business.
You're listening to the Piper podcast. With me is Matt Gowar, the man who turned outdoor clothing company RAB into a brand legend. But when COVID first happened, it wasn't that certain, was it? I mean, anything but. Can you remember that time?
Yeah, I can remember. I don't know whether it's PTSD, but I can remember, all those moments and the emotional roller coaster through probably 6 months. And I guess it would have been February 2020, we were at a trade show in Germany. And we were going like, oh my God, this COVID thing, and the Chinese suppliers that we had at that point were all ringing us up in January, going, oh my God, we're going to shut down we can't make your products, it's going to be delays, and we were metaphorically screaming down the phone, going like, you can't delay, and we'd had a good winter and we needed more product. Oh no, we need the product, we need the product, and we were all sort of going like, oh my God, is this COVID thing fine? And then when I went out to Asia in March, I was going like, this is really serious, and we couldn't get into half the places. And then suddenly it came back within 3 days we're in lockdown, and I was ringing those factories up going, when I was screaming at you, I needed the product. Actually, do you want to slow down? And so I remember sitting there around Easter in 2020 going like, this is really serious. This could be the end of the business. And, such a level of uncertainty. But then within a couple of months, I remember looking out of kitchen window going like, there's a lot of people walking up this road, and like it wasn't on a footpath, but there were lots and lots of people. Going like, ooh, and this was a hunch, and I had, and it was I guess that entrepreneurial risk taking. Went, you know what? I have a not a nasty feeling, but a good feeling about this. And so at that point, I said, we're going to open the supply chain back up. And so we probably had a 3-4 month steal on our competitors. And we opened up the supply chain. And
based on your hunch?
Yeah, on literally those people walking past my kitchen window.
So your poor suppliers, first of all, you tell them hurry up. Then you say ease off. And then you say, you know what? We do need that stuff, and we need it yesterday.
Yes. And we still have a great supply chain. And that was absolutely critical and always has been part of the success of the business. And it's very unsexy and people don't really talk about it. But the factories that manufacture our product are absolutely key to what we do. And we talk about brand and that's all great, but you've got to have really solid supply chain. As a business, we put as much effort into the back office side as we have the front office and the brand.
So where are most of your suppliers then?
They're now predominantly in kind of what I call West Asia, so from India through to Indonesia and via sort of Bangladesh, Cambodia, Vietnam. Originally, when we set the business up, it was all Chinese-based. But a combination of rising costs in China, a tariff regime which doesn't favour China, and loads of people know all about that. So it's migrated, and some of those factories have been with us 20 years. And in fact, one of the factories we use in the Philippines was my second supplier, and I've been working with them since the mid-90s.
But originally, the stuff was made in Sheffield, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. So RAB itself was made in Sheffield. The Outdoor Designs brand was always made in Asia, so we never had any of our own manufacturing. Unfortunately, and this is a bit probably we're not so proud of, but we had a manufacturing base in Sheffield, and the biggest single problem was it didn't have the skill set or the capabilities to make a broader range of product. So at that point, it only made down clothing and down sleeping bags. But we saw the opportunity to expand the product into waterproofs and fleece and base layer, and it didn't have the skill set. Also, we had 40 workers. If we wanted to make all of our own product, we knew we had to double and triple that workforce, and that was almost impossible to find. So we began to outsource the manufacturing out to Asia, and then very quickly we grew that, and then within a couple of years we'd actually shut the factory in Sheffield.
It must have been quite a tough decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, standing up in front of 40 machinists in Sheffield and saying massive amounts of apology, but the UK manufacturing was not sustainable. Yes, it was a hard day, and people talk about this. Why can't we make in the UK? RAB's an international business, and manufacturing in the UK to service the whole world is very, very difficult. Manufacturing in the UK to supply the UK market, that's easy. But as soon as you go outside that, then it would have been impossible.
Awkward though, because it must have been integral to the original RAB brand.
Yes.
I know you pride yourself on being an ethical manufacturer, supplier. Did it cause you sleepless nights?
Yeah, still does. There's decisions you make that you have to make. And I mean, the business would not be where it is today had we kept that. But it still doesn't mean it was an easy decision. And I think that was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, standing up in front of those people.
Not a proud moment?
No, not at all. I was 20, in my late 20s at that point. It was a difficult day, yeah. But the business has grown. We now employ 280 odd people across the world. So not a proud moment, but then you take pride in the business and the people who are in it today.
I was going to ask you, my next question was the critical points at which RAB had to change in order to scale. And you have just described the crucial one, which was changing What were the other points that...
I think the sort of doing it differently and setting up these overseas offices was absolutely crucial. Trying to work through distributors is always difficult. They have a slightly different agenda to yours. They want to run their own business, and they often will represent multiple brands. Whereas, you do things for the long term, they do things for the short term. And right now, probably 90-something% of our revenue goes through our own subsidiaries in those countries. That has really helped the business being transformed from a UK business to a UK-based business that sells internationally.
So what do those overseas offices look like? They're
about 10 of them.
About 10 now.
So those predominantly are sales and marketing offices. In a couple of countries, we have our own warehouses as well in North America, but most of them are sales and marketing. So they will employ a sales force that goes out and visits our wholesale customers. They'll have customer service in some of them. They'll look after the marketing functions in those countries as well. The product is still designed, and the sort of that back office is still done in the UK.
Okay, and you never considered doing it all from the UK. It was important to you to have representation in different countries.
Yes, culturally is different in terms of how you access the market and the messaging in those countries. Relationships are super important. So our business is nearly 90% wholesale. So we sell to independent retailers and stockists throughout the world.
So there are no RAB shops anywhere?
No, there's one in Denver. Otherwise, we don't own any of our own retail shops. So having those relationships locally to those retailers is super important, and that's very difficult to be done from the UK. I mean, there's also language and time zones, but those are practical reasons. But there's a sort of the way we do business and how we approach things is a primary reason that we do that.
I'm trying to picture, though, I know you're not involved in the day-to-day to the same extent as you were, but control freak Matt, self-confessed, quite difficult to keep across everything in all these different countries.
Yeah, it is.
Quite a struggle, I think, isn't it, at times?
And you find, within those regions is that you find people that get it. If people understand what you're doing, how you do it, and they get on with it, then you don't need to directly control it. Maybe you control the process and the messaging, but they execute that. And spending some time being one of those subsidiaries when I lived in the States really helped understand what those subsidiary offices need around the world. Did
you have a sort of brand ethos that you explained to people that they had to understand? You talk about people getting it or not getting it.
Yeah.
Could you encapsulate that into something that you could describe now?
I think, yes, when we started that overseas expansion, we always slightly struggled to articulate the messaging and what the brand stood for and the way we did things, and we just called it the RAB way. And that was quite simple. It's like, sweep it under the carpet, just call it the RAB way, and they'll either get it or they won't. And so it was a great kind of mask. It just, if you can't articulate, just call it the RAB way. It's simple, it's done. But I think the industry is quite all-encompassing, and so people very quickly understood what it was. So that was super easy. I think as the business has grown, the current team done a great job in articulating that in a more clearly defined way. Obviously we're in the digital era, so it's very easy to turn words into pictures and messaging and that kind of thing.
So what would that be? There's the RAB way and there's the wrong way. So What's the RAB way?
I think if you ask some of the team today, the RAB way was the Matt way. Hopefully now it's easier to define. So I think we've always kept the brand positioning and the product and who we target as a core consumer. That's always been there. And so I think part of the RAB way is identifying and being focused and still, that same, keen outdoor technical consumer is our absolute guiding light.
So you had a very strong vision of who the customer was.
Yes, and we've never varied from that. So we've always focused on the technical customer who loves the outdoors, is out there regularly, in all weathers, all the time.
Is that customer by any chance Matt Gowar?
It probably was. I think we touched on earlier that when you run a business, you very quickly lose the time to do it. So there was a period when it definitely wasn't Matt Gowar, because Matt Gowar wasn't going outdoors. He was busy running the business. Yes, I think it was then. And I know that our customer base is renewing, so I'm probably now on the older side of that customer base. But it definitely was, absolutely, that keen outdoor enthusiast.
Did you get help to try and identify this? What were your key hires to actually take your brand on this journey that you described?
Oh God, there's loads of people who have been who have worked for us or still work for us, and trying to single one or two out would be very, very difficult. I've been amazingly lucky to work with just a great bunch of people, and I'm sitting here today as one person, but really, there's 280 odd people in the organisation. And if you add in the people that have worked for us, it's a huge team over the years. And I think, yes, I've been there, and you always see the CEO or the owner or the founder or whatever is the figurehead, but that's not the case. It's people.
Did you grow your own, or did you do outside hires?
Bit of both over the years. The outdoor industry, luckily, is quite a tight-knit community. So even when you bring external people in, they already understand the industry and the business. So there's sort of probably three pools you'd look at: your own internal, within the industry and then without the industry. And we're quite, as an industry, some people say it's great that, we're a tight-knit community and we hire within that. Some people say that doesn't bring you external experience. So we have a sort of 3 pools of people that we look at when we're hiring.
And what key points were there that made you need to hire?
I can remember hiring the first person, and that was like, oh my God, this is serious. Yes, we hired 2 people quite quickly. So I had a sales guy who helped. At that point, I was still selling, but I couldn't do it all. So we hired someone, and then an office manager to help just do the back office side. And I remember just very quickly after that, it just grows. And suddenly you wake up and there's 10, 20, and yeah.
And was that something that you were able to accept, or did you struggle to accept the need to share out some of the decision making or some of the operational stuff? Was it a smooth process for you, or did you struggle with it?
Struggle, and still, even when I was CEO, when you hire people and as you grow, you farm out sections of my job and other people's jobs, and that is tough. And that kind of delegation is a skill and an acceptance. Yeah.
Was there ever a point that you thought, okay, we're growing too quickly here?
For the first kind of up until COVID, and that was, a good span, call it nearly 20 years, we'd grown in this kind of repetitious 15, it was either 14 or 16%. It literally was. And you do these graphs and go, oh my God, this looks like a graph that someone's cooked because all the dots are very close to that line. And I was always slightly envious of businesses that had this sort of breakaway success. And then we hit that point in COVID, and it's quite scary. Suddenly you realise, that expansion and the pressure that puts on the team, because you can't, when you're growing that quickly, some people will hire ahead of the curve, and that then, there's probably a whole different podcast around that. But you're trying to hire quickly, and that's really tough. And so it was during all the emotional period of COVID as well. It was a tough time, and growing the business. Yeah.
How did you manage that growth?
Probably badly, because it
think?
was
Honestly,
well,
I don't want false modesty here. You must have done something right.
Yeah,
obviously.
We're very lucky that we had a good supply chain that could supply the product to grow that quickly. And we had some scalable operations. So, some key bits of warehousing and things we outsourced. So within the business, the pressure it put on that kind of back office team wasn't as great as it could have been. And we managed to just about get away with it. Things were creaking. And then we had to sort of play catch up with hiring and that kind of thing as well.
And within this period, you also purchased Low Alpine.
Yeah, so Low Alpine we bought in 2011, so before COVID, and that was probably more of a passion-driven acquisition. Again, my first sleeping bag was a Rab sleeping bag that went into a Low Alpine backpack. So it was a brand that I'd admired and grew up with, and an opportunity came to purchase it. It had been in administration. And that was a whole learning curve that was like massive. So we bought Rab. It was functioning. It was a good business. It was moving forward. Very different.
Brand equity, didn't it?
Brand equity. I think probably Low Alpine had raided that piggy bank a bit too much. And probably with hindsight, I'd probably say now that piggy bank was pretty empty. And trying to dig a business that had been, in decline with a team that had been with that was hard work, and it was a difficult challenge, yeah.
And you have returned, as I understand, Low Alpine to its core original business, which is making backpacks.
Yes,
so you shed all the other products that they were
producing. They were making clothing at that point as well. I mean, the irony is probably that the Low Alpine clothing offering had declined, and Rab took up quite a lot of that opportunity, as it were, and I think Rab benefited from the decline of Low Alpine clothing. So the two businesses were already kind of in the same market, and one's demise was another one's opportunity.
Yeah. And how did you fund all this? I mean, you talked about taking a bank loan in the early 2000s.
So we raised money through a VCT fund called Matrix, that then turned into Mobius, that then turned into Gresham. So we took external funding at that point. We had to give up some ownership of the business, but we had a choice. We could either not do the transaction and not give up a part, or we made the acquisition. And it is a difficult emotional journey for a founder to give up some ownership of the business. But I think, it was definitely the right decision. We couldn't have done it without that support. And ultimately, you make a decision. Do you have a slightly smaller part of the bigger pie, or do you keep all of a smaller pie? And you have to balance that up. And a lot of businesses, they have those decisions. Some do it, some don't. And we did it, and it was the right thing, and it was a good journey.
It's not just about the equity, though, is it? Because if you involve a private equity company, they then have a say.
Yes.
And was that how difficult a process was that to concede some of that control, I suppose? Is that a good way of putting it?
Don't forget that the people that will often sit on the board of your business come with a whole load of experience. And you are bringing that expertise into the business. And within most funds, there's a great wealth of experience. It may not be necessarily just the person sitting on the board of your business. There is a whole tap of vast experience behind them. And that experience is, I'm not going to say priceless, but certainly a real useful influence in the business. And they bring that experience to bear with that control. And we were very lucky that it was a minority stake, not a majority stake. So maybe it would be different if they own the majority of the business. But, they are also there to grow the business alongside you. So that journey together, you have got common aims and objectives. And founders are not necessarily always the best person to grow the business. And I've identified that, and that's why one of the reasons why I step back. That influence is absolutely vital to grow the business.
And you have to get the right private equity company.
Yes.
Don't you?
Yeah, you do.
And you have a sort of beauty pageant, did you? Did you decide?
Yes, we did.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. I was actually living in the States at that point as well, so it was a remote beauty pageant. I can remember phone calls in the middle of the night and things like that. So it was great. And we, again, lucky, we had a great business and we had a lot of interest. And so, that was a whole whirlwind and quite fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. But you did buy it back, didn't you?
Yes.
In what year was it?
We bought the business back in 2021, and we had the opportunity to raise some debt through HSBC, who we still bank with today. And we managed to buy out our VCT partners,
Succession is crucial.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
How smile here for anyone who's interested.
Yeah.
How difficult was that to put in place? Was it complex? Was it clear to you how it had to work?
Succession, I mean, through the 30-odd years of running the business, I had seen succession in multiple levels through the business. So, we had people who retired from the business during that period or who left. So you had a mindset towards succession always. And so you're always looking at your team and thinking, well, what happens if? And you have to plan that. Retirement's obviously very, very easy because, you can see that coming from quite a long way away. When people are leaving, you need that succession anyway. So having that resilience within the business is always super important. And then when it was time for myself to be the ultimate succession, that was hard. And
was it emotional, Matt?
Oh, God, yeah.
Was it?
Totally. Probably one of the most difficult emotional periods of my business career.
But you chose.
Yes. It felt the right time. Probably, and I had two marriages, one to the business and one to my wife, and it was time to give the time back to my wife, who'd been amazingly supportive through the business. Luckily, she married me while I was already in the business.
So she knew what she was getting into.
Yes,
what she was getting into.
We talk about inflection points. So one of those was 2003, where we bought RAB. I met my wife. We moved factory locations all in 1 year. So she'd grown up. She'd been married to the business, and it was time to give back more to my family.
So who's running it now?
So great management team had been with me almost 10 years. And then we brought in a guy called Richard Leadham, who I didn't really know that well, but knew of him in the industry. So known of him and met a few times for probably 15 or 20 years. And the opportunity came to hire him. And I didn't have a day I needed to leave, but when I had the right person. And so it's great. Richard is relatively, well, he's been there 2 years now, but the rest of the management team, the red directors have been there, and I've worked with previously. So it was, yes, we weren't just bringing in a whole new management team. It was a new CEO backed up by a great board. And
Richard Leedham's, his background is at Berghaus, is that
yes,
right?
Berghaus, and a couple of other stints in the outdoor industry. So, I mean, that's kind of, Berghaus were always a competitor, in the early years of the business. So I knew Richard at that point. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk to you about brand purpose, because we're here to talk about, Piper's idea of building brand legends.
Yeah.
And the importance of brands staying resolutely true to their purpose. So can you define what is RAB's purpose?
Its purpose is to design and make amazing gear and clothing for active outdoor enthusiasts.
What makes it different from its competitors?
I think that focus, and we've never strayed from that mission of making amazing product for that core user. And I think staying on that and never being distracted, never pursuing brand or product opportunities that are outside that core vision. To grow the business, there's two directions that brands like ours could go. The first one, which is probably the more popular route, I guess, is to broaden the customer base and broaden the appeal. So maybe by going after a more fashion-conscious customer, that market is massive. And there's been some brands who have been hugely successful in doing it. Like North Face, for example. That started out a long time ago, very much like RAB, making core technical equipment, and today is a multi-billion-dollar business. Our goal and kind of mantra is to stay more technical, and we, the industry refers to this kind of top of the mountain, bottom of the mountain. I mean, it's a bit of a cliched thing, but we still focus on the top of the mountain, and what we want to be is the top of the mountain in more markets, in more countries. The change in the market's been very opportunistic for the brand. So 10 or 20 years ago, that customer of ours would go climbing and mountaineering, and that's all they would do. But today, that same customer will ski on a Saturday, will go climbing on a Sunday, might go running on a Tuesday. And so their wardrobe, their hopefully not just a wardrobe, their garage full of gear has grown. Maybe it was a wardrobe 20 years ago. It's now a garage, and they've got multiple activities and pastimes. So the market has grown. And so we define that customer by the mountain, but they do multiple other things. So RAB now does backcountry ski gear, trail running and mountain running products as well. So same customer, what do they do on that Friday or the Tuesday or the Wednesday? And so we've focused out that. And interestingly, you look at sort of adjacent markets, though, maybe like the bike market. You see cyclists wearing, not on the bike, but maybe before a ride or after a ride, they wear a RAB down jacket. So same customer doing more activities, and that's been and that's our goal.
How do you communicate with your customers?
If you think about the business over 20 odd years, that customer has changed and evolved, and you have new generations. If you think that original customer is probably now in their 50s, and you're beginning to focus probably someone in their late 20s and 30s. So your tone of voice has had to change over the years as that target audience has come into that age category. So if you target on a particular customer as they get older, you've got to think about, customer regeneration. From one, it sounds really kind of simplistic, but you've got to evolve that tone and that customer messaging always.
I was looking at your website,
yeah.
and it's very technical.
Yeah,
you've got little films on there deconstructing a jacket,
yeah.
and explaining why it is
yeah.
as good as it is, and there's a lot of technical speak about lofting and
yeah.
particular types of down and so on. So it's not a chummy tone of voice, is it, that you take?
No.
It's a technical kind of we're experts together tone of voice.
Yeah, and I think that kind of that technical background of making amazing product has always been there. And, could we soften that tone of voice? Yes, but that's not who we are. And that's our point of difference. Because at the end of the day, we cannot be everything to all people. As soon as you start doing that, and I've seen brands widen their appeal, you then lose that core customer. People advise us, well, it's very technical and edgy and, that can be quite intimidating to customers. Yes, it can be. And there are lots of other brands out there, and that's fine. But, we have this focus on that customer, and our customers appreciate the product and it works for them. And we believe that they want to understand and know the product isn't cheap. They want to know why they're buying that product and what it will do for them.
Do you have an online community? Do you have influencers that you work with?
So we're not particularly influencer driven. We have a core community of athletes that we work quite closely with. So they could be professional guides. They could be people going out and doing new climbing routes. So those are, I guess, what we would call loosely our influencers, but they are core people in the outdoor space.
So they're professionals.
Yes, yeah, they are professionals. They live and breathe, climbing or skiing or running in those markets. They're not sort of people who are there to sort of boost your social media popularity. They do that because people follow them and they're seen as influential people, but I wouldn't call them influencers in the current sort of marketing definition.
They're not the selfie brigade.
No. There's very few selfies taken. That's quite an interesting concept. Yes, they're not the selfie brigade. If you look at quite a lot of our pictures, they are pictures of or videos of the people doing something, but they're taken by someone else.
Okay, so they're not there's not a lot of pouting into the camera.
Yes, no pouting allowed here. Yes.
Look, you have talked a very compelling story about your 34 years in the industry. It's a big success story, really, isn't it? I mean, whichever way you look at it. And you're now in a position of being able to, perhaps stand slightly to one side and observe it. What do you put your success down to?
I think there's been a lot of hard work. We've had some luck over the years. And people say, well, how much has luck played part of the story? But I think luck gives opportunities. And if you don't realise and don't seize that opportunity, then actually luck doesn't mean anything. So, you could be the right place at the right time, whether it's a product opportunity and someone says, oh, have you thought about this? Or, you see a great new material technology, but you've got to, luck presents the opportunity, but you've got to still have the ability to understand and seize that opportunity. I think one of the guiding principles is having an amazing team that can seize those opportunities and deliver. And I think within a business, there are always factors and there's always going to be things going on in the world, whether it's tariffs or COVID or Brexit or foot and mouth or whatever. And it's having a team that can seize the moment, and whether it's dealing with a problem or an opportunity.
But also having a leader who is willing to suck up the pressure and the stress and deal with all of that. So when you look back at it, how did you deal with those pressures over the years? Are you a heart attack in the making, or were you always able to cope, to compartmentalise, I suppose?
Yeah, there is a lot of stress and it's an emotional roller coaster. You've got stress at one side and then you also get the highs as well. And dealing with that is a skill set, and not taking it out on the people around you. I think sometimes I did.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Days coming back and you've had a bad day and unfortunately your family sometimes are the buffer. Sometimes
Mrs. Gower's had a lot to put up with over the years, has she?
Yes. Yeah. But also the people you work with as well. Frustrations at work will come out at work. And I appreciate probably now having stepped back how much they had to put up with. around you. And so, some people can cope with that, some people can't. But at the same time, that team, as long as you can share the successes with them as well.
Did you change as a leader, do you think, over those? You must have changed. Over
I must
34
have changed.
years, we all do, right?
Yeah, I guess I must have. Very difficult to be the judge of that. I probably need to ask. You probably need to do a podcast with them. How
I'll be
is it?
talking to Mrs. Gowar, don't you worry. In due course.
how have they changed? Yeah, you do, and you get older. Started business in my 20s. Left it in the from CEO in my 50s. Yeah, you do change, and having that ability to cope with that as you get older and wiser.
Is there anything looking back that you wish you'd done differently? Earlier, maybe?
Yeah, there's lots of decisions, I think, small decisions that you wish I don't think there's anything massive that I wish I'd done earlier. I think there's lots of small bits. You think, well, maybe I should have upgraded our IT system a couple of years earlier. But, there weren't big fundamental decisions that I think I wish I'd made. Probably, with hindsight, probably could have done with stepping down a year or so earlier from CEO. I think at that point I'd kind of reached my limit, both in terms of my experience and skills, and yeah, I think probably everyone said probably should have gone a year earlier.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do. And it's easier now to look back. I think the last year was tough. And maybe that was tough because I thought I'd made the decision at that point that I needed to step back, and maybe it was adjusting to that emotional reality. I don't know, but yeah.
Will you ever sell RAB, do you think?
Well, at some point it has to, whether I'm alive or not. At some point there may be a great opportunity. I don't know. It's not something that I've ever thought about at the moment.
Not motivated by the money?
No, I think no. This has never been about the money for me. Very quickly, it was about growing the business and the success, and I get my kick, as it were, from the business. And ultimately, yes, that is a monetary turnover or profitability, but that's a number on a spreadsheet. And so people say it's a numbers game. Success of the business has been the motivating factor.
So what would be your advice to other founders who might be listening to this, would-be founders who are inspired or want the idea? Or
I think there's kind of different messages to people who are thinking about doing it and people who have done it. Having the idea and starting a business, you've got to be brave to do that, and a lot of respect. We touched on earlier, very different when you sort of leave school with a great idea, and you have a lot less fear when you're younger. I think someone who does it, who's in mid-career, I've got a massive amount of admiration, and I've met and know people who've done that, and that takes real bravery. It's an opportunity, and you should absolutely grasp it. If you think you've got an idea and want to do it, you should do it. And most of the people, maybe they've done it, maybe it's worked out, maybe it hasn't. There's not many people who say, I wish I hadn't done it. There's always people who go to the grave and say, I wish I had. And so do it, because you may regret not doing it.
Matt Gowar, so nice to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.